The massive windows of Galactic Council Station Harmony showed nothing but endless stars in the spinning purple glow of the neutron star below. Doyen stood alone near the observation deck, his reflection staring back at him from the transparent steel. He looked small even to himself, 5 feet 6 inches of human diplomat in a station built for giants. Behind him, the Grand Assembly Hall buzzed with hundreds of alien species preparing for the Centennial Summit. Doyen could hear their voices, their clicks, their hisses. He could feel their stares. The human delegation had arrived 3 days ago, and every moment since had been filled with barely concealed mockery. His communications device vibrated. A message from Minji, his mentor back on Earth. "Stand tall, Doyen. You earned this position. Show them what humanity can do." Doyen smiled sadly. Minji had fought hard to get him this assignment. The head of Earth's diplomatic corps believed in him when others did not. But belief only carried you so far when you stood in a room full of beings who saw you as nothing more than a curious animal. He straightened his formal jacket and walked toward the assembly hall. The summit would begin in 20 minutes. Earth's proposal for expanded mining rights in the Outer Veil Nebula was third on the agenda. Doyen had practiced his presentation for weeks. Every word, every gesture, every piece of data was memorized perfectly. The doors opened with a soft hiss. The assembly hall stretched before him like a cathedral built for gods. The ceiling rose hundreds of feet above, covered in holographic displays showing real-time translations in 6,000 languages. Delegates sat in tiered sections, each species cluster grouped by their stellar region. The humans occupied a small section in the back corner, barely visible from the main floor. Doyen made his way to his seat. As he passed the Vraxian delegation, he heard the loud voice of Thexval, their primary ambassador. The massive creature stood 9 feet tall, its 4 arms crossed over its chitinous chest plates. Its compound eyes tracked Doyen's movement with obvious amusement. "Look," Thexval said to his companions, his voice deliberately loud enough to carry. "The Terran delegates grow smaller each year. Soon they will send insects to represent them." Laughter rippled through several nearby delegations. Doyen kept walking, his face calm. He had learned long ago that responding to such provocations only made things worse. Let them laugh. Let them underestimate. It was not the first time, and it would not be the last. He reached the human section and sat beside Hyunwoo, his older brother and military advisor. Hyunwoo's jaw was clenched, his hands gripped tight on the armrests. "I heard what that 4-armed bastard said," Hyunwoo whispered. "Say the word and I will file a formal complaint." "No," Doyen replied quietly. "It would accomplish nothing. They want us to react. They want us to prove we are as primitive and emotional as they believe." Hyunwoo exhaled slowly. "You have more patience than I do, little brother." The assembly horn sounded, a deep resonant note that silenced the chamber. The Supreme Arbiter, a floating crystalline being of pure energy named Luminarch, appeared above the central podium. Its voice echoed in every delegate's mind simultaneously through the translation network. "Welcome, representatives of the Galactic Council. We gather once more to ensure peace, prosperity, and cooperation among all sentient species. Today's agenda includes trade negotiations, territorial disputes, and petitions from provisional members seeking expanded privileges." Doyen felt his heart rate increase. This was it. Everything Earth had worked toward for the past decade came down to the next hour. The first 2 agenda items passed quickly. A trade dispute between the Krell Collective and the methane breathers was resolved through arbitration. A petition from the Silicon Network for recognition of digital consciousness was tabled for further study. Then Luminarch's attention turned to the human section. Third item. The Terran Consortium requests expanded mining rights in the Outer Veil Nebula, currently classified as contested territory. Ambassador Doyen of Earth will present the petition. Doyen stood and walked to the central podium. The walk felt like miles. Every eye in the chamber followed him. He could feel their judgment, their dismissal, their certainty that his species did not belong here. He reached the podium and activated his holographic display. Charts and data streams appeared in the air around him, showing Earth's mining efficiency, safety records, and proposed extraction methods. "Honorable delegates," Doyen began, his voice steady and clear. "Humanity requests fair consideration for mining rights in the Outer Veil. We have demonstrated responsible resource management in our current territories. We have shared our findings with the Council database. We have paid our dues and followed every protocol required of provisional members. The display shifted to show comparison data. Human mining operations had lower accident rates than 70% of current license holders. Earth's environmental restoration programs exceeded Council standards by significant margins. We do not ask for charity, Doyon continued. We ask for evaluation based on merit and capability. The Outer Veil contains resources that would benefit many species, and humanity has proven we can extract them efficiently while minimizing ecological impact. He paused, meeting the eyes of various delegates across the chamber. Some looked bored. Others seemed actively hostile. Very few appeared genuinely interested. Thexval's voice boomed across the hall before Doyon could continue. Point of order, Supreme Arbiter. I must object to this petition. Luminarch's crystalline form pulsed. State your objection, Ambassador Thexval. The Vraxian rose to his full impressive height. The Terran species has been a council member for barely 2 centuries. They are infants in galactic terms. Their homeworld is a violent death trap that they barely survived. They spent most of their existence killing each other in primitive wars. And now this tiny mammal stands before us requesting the same privileges as species who have proven themselves over millennia. More laughter echoed through the chamber. Doyon felt heat rising in his chest but kept his expression neutral. Thexval was not finished. Look at him. He is smaller than a Vraxian juvenile. His species has no natural armor, no venom, no significant physical advantages whatsoever. They are prey animals who learn to use tools. Why should we grant them access to valuable resources when stronger, more proven species are waiting in line? The laughter grew louder. Several delegates openly mocked the human section now. Doyon stood at the podium, his presentation frozen in the air around him, feeling the weight of their contempt. He waited for the noise to die down. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet, but it carried through the chamber's acoustics perfectly. Ambassador Thexval is correct. Humans are small. We have no natural armor or venom. We come from a difficult world and we spent much of our history in conflict. Doyon met the Vraxian's eyes, but we are still here. We survived. We learned. We reached the stars. And we are asking only for fair evaluation, not special treatment. If our record is insufficient, show us where we have failed, but do not dismiss us simply because we are different from you. Luminarch pulsed thoughtfully. The petition is noted. The Council will deliberate and provide a response within the standard cycle. Ambassador Doyon, you may return to your seat. Doyon bowed slightly and walked back through the rows of delegates. The mocking whispers followed him the entire way. When he reached his seat, Hyunwoo gripped his shoulder supportively. You did well, his brother whispered. But Doyon knew the truth. The petition would be denied. Earth would remain exactly where the Council wanted them, at the bottom of the hierarchy, forever proving themselves to species that would never see them as equals. That evening, as Doyon sat alone in his quarters reviewing the disastrous presentation, his communication device chirped. An encrypted message from Minji. He opened it with tired fingers. The message was brief. Proceed to Section 7 of the station immediately. Coordinates attached. Tell no one. This is an unexpected diplomatic opportunity. Trust me. Doyon stared at the message. Section 7 was a restricted zone. He had seen it marked on station maps with red warning symbols. Why would Minji send him there? But he had trusted her this far. He changed into darker, less formal clothing and slipped out of his quarters into the dimly lit corridors of the massive station. Whatever waited in Section 7, it could hardly be worse than the humiliation he had already endured. He had no idea how wrong he was. The corridors leading to Section 7 grew darker with each turn. Doyon followed the coordinates on his device, his footsteps echoing off metal walls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The cheerful bustle of the main station districts had given way to an oppressive silence, broken only by the distant hum of life support systems. He reached the first checkpoint after 20 minutes of walking. A security barrier glowed red across the passage and a mechanical voice spoke in standard galactic. Restricted area. Authorization required. Doyon held up his credentials expecting to be turned away. Instead, the barrier flickered and turned green. Access granted. Proceed with caution. That was strange. His diplomatic credentials should not have worked here. Section 7 was supposed to be accessible only to Supreme Council members and high-level security personnel. Doyon hesitated, then continued forward. Minji had sent him here for a reason. The second checkpoint behaved the same way. The third as well. It was as if something in the station's computer system was opening doors specifically for him. The thought made his skin crawl, but he pressed on. The corridor ended at a massive circular door marked with symbols in a dozen languages. All of them said the same thing in different words. Danger. Maximum security containment. Unauthorized entry punishable by immediate execution. Doyen's communication device vibrated. Another message, this time with no sender identification. You have been expected. Enter when ready. Time remaining until barrier deactivation, 90 seconds. His blood ran cold. Barrier deactivation? What did that mean? Was something being released? Before he could process the implications, the massive door began to open. It moved slowly, sections sliding apart with a grinding sound that spoke of mechanisms rarely used. Beyond the door lay a vast chamber, lit by pale blue emergency lights. Doyen stepped inside and immediately understood why this section was forbidden. The chamber was built around a single containment cell in the center. Energy barriers crackled and hummed, creating a cage of pure force. And inside that cage stood something that made every instinct in Doyen's body scream for him to run. The creature was enormous, easily 12 feet tall. Its body was covered in scales that looked like polished obsidian, reflecting the blue light in strange patterns. A ridge-crested head turned toward him, revealing eyes that glowed with an intelligence that was immediately, terrifyingly obvious. This was not an animal. This was a person, a very dangerous person. 4 claws on each hand scraped against the energy barrier as the creature moved closer, studying him. Its movements were precise and calculated, like a martial artist evaluating an opponent. Doyen could see muscle moving beneath the scales, power barely contained. A holographic display near the cell provided information in multiple languages. Doyen's eyes found the human text and read quickly. Species Fracht. Classification, Apex Predator Prime. Threat level Extinction Class. Prisoner designation, Taihyuk. Crime, destruction of Krell Warfleet 7. Casualties 47,000. Status contained 47 years. Escape attempts 23. Successful escapes 0. Doyen's device vibrated again. Time remaining 60 seconds. He finally understood. This was a trap. Someone, probably one of the delegates who had mocked him today, had arranged for him to be here when this creature was released. They wanted to eliminate Earth's representative in a way that could not be traced back to them. A tragic accident in a restricted zone where he should not have been. The smart thing would be to run. But Doyen had spent his entire life being underestimated, being dismissed, being told to run or hide or give up. Something in him was tired of running. Instead, he did something that surprised even himself. He walked closer to the containment cell, found a spot on the floor directly in front of it, and sat down cross-legged. If he was going to die, he would die facing the creature that killed him, not running away in fear. The Vracht tilted its massive head, clearly surprised by this reaction. Its glowing eyes studied Doyen with renewed interest. 45 seconds, Doyen said quietly, reading his device. I suppose we are about to meet properly. The creature's expression changed. If Doyen had to describe it, he would have said it looked almost pleased. 30 seconds. Doyen kept his breathing steady, using techniques he had learned from meditation practice. Fear was natural. Panic was a choice. He chose to remain calm. The Vracht moved to the edge of its containment field and lowered itself into a similar sitting position, mirroring Doyen's posture. The mockery of human body language was clear, but there was something else in the gesture. Recognition, perhaps, or respect. 15 seconds. Doyen's heart pounded, but his hands remained still on his knees. He thought of Hyunwoo, who would be furious when he learned his little brother had died in such a stupid way. He thought of Minji, who had trusted him with this opportunity. He wondered if she knew this would happen. 10 seconds. The energy barriers began to flicker and pulse. Warning lights activated around the chamber, bathing everything in red. An alarm should have been sounding, but the station's computer had apparently disabled it. 5 seconds. The Vracht's eyes never left Doyen's face. There was something in that gaze, something that looked almost like anticipation. 3, 2, 1. The energy barriers collapsed with a sound like thunder. The Vracht was free. For a moment, nothing happened. The creature remained sitting, still watching Doyen. Then slowly it rose to its full towering height. Doyen remained seated, looking up at the being that could kill him with a single casual swipe of those claws. The Vracht took one step forward, then another. It circled Doyen slowly, studying him from every angle. Doyen could smell it now, a scent like hot stone and ozone. He could hear its breathing, deep and controlled. Finally, the Vracht completed its circle and stopped in front of Doyen. It lowered its head until its face was level with his. They were close enough that Doyen could see his own reflection in those glowing eyes. When the Vracht spoke, its voice was like grinding rocks in an earthquake. But the words it spoke were not in Galactic Standard. They were in perfect Korean. "I am told you have been studying humanity. I am told you requested this meeting." Doyen blinked. Those were the exact words he had been planning to say. How had the creature known? The Vracht's expression shifted into something that might have been a smile, though it was a terrifying sight. "No small one. You have it backwards. I have been studying humanity, and I requested this meeting. The question is whether you are intelligent enough to understand why." Doyen's mind raced. This was not a trap set by other delegates. This was something else entirely, something the Vracht had arranged. But how? It had been imprisoned for 47 years. How could it possibly have the access and influence to manipulate station security systems and forge messages from Minji? "I see the confusion in your eyes," the Vracht continued in that perfect Korean. "Good. Intelligence begins with recognizing what you do not know. I am Tae-hyuk. I have been a prisoner of the Galactic Council for 47 of your years. But being imprisoned does not mean being powerless. I have had much time to watch, to learn, to plan." Tae-hyuk began to circle Doyen again, but this time the movement felt less threatening, more like a teacher pacing while giving a lecture. "The Council keeps me here as a warning to others. The Vracht are too dangerous to join galactic society, they say. We are monsters who cannot be controlled. They show me to delegates who consider rebellion, to species who question Council authority. They say this is what happens to those who challenge order. This is the fate of apex predators in a galaxy that values peace." Doyen listened carefully. The Vracht's voice carried no anger, only a kind of cold assessment. "But they made a mistake," Tae-hyuk continued. "They gave me access to their databases for my studies. They thought it would keep me occupied, make me docile. Instead, I learned about every species in the Council. I studied their histories, their cultures, their psychology, and I discovered something fascinating." Tae-hyuk stopped circling and sat down again, this time close enough that Doyen could have reached out and touched the obsidian scales. The creature's eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "I discovered your species, the humans, the Terrans, the laughingstock of the Galactic Council." Tae-hyuk's voice held something that sounded like admiration. "Do you know what I saw when I studied Earth's history?" Doyen shook his head slightly. His voice came out as barely a whisper. "What did you see?" "I saw myself," Tae-hyuk replied. "I saw a species of persistence hunters from a death world. I saw pack coordinators who conquered their planet through intelligence and endurance. I saw beings who turned their world's attempts to kill them into advantages. I saw predators who the Council does not recognize as predators because you do not look like what they expect predators to look like." The Vracht leaned closer. "They laugh at you, little brother. They see your size and think you weak. They see your soft flesh and think you prey. But I know what you are. I know what your species survived to reach the stars. And I know what you are capable of when pushed." Doyen found his voice again. "Why do you call me brother?" Tae-hyuk's terrifying smile returned. "Because we are kin. Not in blood or form, but in nature. The Council is ruled by prey species who evolved intelligence to hide and negotiate and flee." Doyen barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Tae-hyuk's glowing gaze and heard that grinding voice speaking perfect Korean. The Vracht's words echoed in his mind. Kin, predator, little brother. It made no sense, yet somehow it made perfect sense. By morning, reports of the security breach in Section 7 had spread throughout the station. Doyen waited in his quarters, expecting security forces to arrest him at any moment. But the summons, when it came, was not from station security. It was from the Galactic Council itself. Emergency session. All delegates required to attend. 1 hour. Hyunwoo came to his quarters looking worried. "Have you heard the rumors? They say someone freed the Vracht prisoner. Some delegates are claiming it was a terrorist attack. Others say it was a system malfunction. But security found human genetic markers in Section 7. Doyen said nothing. His brother studied his face carefully. It was you, Hyunwoo said quietly. You were there. I did not free it, Doyen replied. It freed itself. Or rather, it arranged to have the barriers lowered. I was simply invited to witness. Invited? By a Vraxth? Hyunwoo sat down heavily. Little brother, do you understand how insane that sounds? Those creatures are monsters. They destroyed entire fleets. They are kept locked away because they are too dangerous to exist in civilized space. That is what the Council tells us, Doyen said. But I spoke with Taehyuk. It was intelligent, controlled, and it knew more about humanity than most humans do. It called us kin. Hyunwoo stared at him. Kin? We are nothing like those things. Are we not? Doyen asked. We come from a death world. We survive through persistence hunting and pack coordination. We conquered Earth not through strength, but through endurance and intelligence. We spent thousands of years competing with predators that were stronger and faster than us, and we won. That is different, Hyunwoo insisted. We evolved past that. We built civilizations and laws and peaceful societies. After thousands of years of tribal warfare, Doyen countered, after world wars and genocides and countless conflicts, we learned cooperation because we were too good at killing each other. That is not the history of prey species. That is the history of predators who learned to redirect their nature. The communication devices of both brothers buzzed simultaneously. Time to attend the emergency session. The assembly hall was in chaos when they arrived. Delegates argued loudly in dozens of languages. The translation network struggled to keep up with the overlapping voices. Security forces lined the walls, armed with weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Luminarch appeared above the central podium, its crystalline form pulsing with agitation. Order! This session requires order! Slowly the noise died down. Delegates returned to their seats, though many continued whispering amongst themselves. Last night a catastrophic security breach occurred in Section 7, Luminarch announced. The containment cell holding the Vraxth prisoner designated Taehyuk was compromised. The energy barriers were deactivated through unauthorized access to station systems. A wave of shocked murmurs rippled through the hall, and the Vraxth was free for approximately 8 minutes before security teams arrived. During that time, it could have escaped or caused significant casualties. Instead, it returned to its cell voluntarily and allowed the barriers to be reactivated. More shocked murmurs. Several delegates looked genuinely confused. The Vraxth had a chance to escape and chose not to. It made no sense to them. Security analysis has identified human genetic markers at the scene, Luminarch continued. Ambassador Doyen of Earth, please rise. Doyen stood, feeling every eye in the chamber turned toward him. He walked to the central podium with steady steps, his fear replaced by a strange calm. Whatever happened now, at least he would face it honestly. Dexval's voice boomed before Luminarch could speak again. This is proof of Terran duplicity. They conspire with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They should be expelled immediately and their homeworld quarantined. Shouts of agreement came from several delegations. Others remained silent, watching carefully. Ambassador Doyen, Luminarch said. Explain your presence in Section 7. Doyen took a breath. I received a message directing me to those coordinates. I believed it was a diplomatic opportunity. When I arrived, I discovered the Vraxth prisoner. The security barriers were already programmed to fail. I chose to remain and speak with Taehyuk rather than flee. Speak? A serpentine delegate rose, its body coiling in agitation. One does not speak with Vraxth. One runs or dies. What could you possibly have discussed? Taehyuk spoke about humanity, Doyen replied. It has been studying Earth for decades. It understands our history and our nature better than most council species do. It called us kin. The hall erupted in derisive laughter. Even some of the human delegation looked uncomfortable. Dexval's voice cut through the noise. Kin. The Vraxth called this tiny prey animal kin. This is either a lie or proof that the Terran has been driven insane by fear. In either case, Earth should be removed from council consideration. It is neither lie nor insanity, a new voice said. Every delegate froze. The voice had not come from the translation network. It had come from the central display screen, which had activated on its own. Taehyuk's face filled the screen, massive and terrifying. Its eyes seemed to look directly at each delegate simultaneously. I am Taehyuk of the Vraxth, the creature said in perfect galactic standard. For 47 cycles, your council has kept me caged like an animal. You studied me. You feared me. You used me as a warning to others who might challenge your authority. Security forces raised their weapons, but there was nothing to shoot. Taehyuk was still in Section 7, speaking through the station's communication network. You believe you understand the galaxy? Taehyuk continued. You have created a hierarchy based on your prey species psychology. The large and strong are given respect. The small and soft are dismissed. You build societies based on avoiding conflict because that is how prey species think. The Vrakt's gaze seemed to intensify, but you have made a critical error. You have failed to recognize a true predator species when they arrived. Humanity is not prey. They are persistence hunters, pack coordinators, survivors of a death world who conquered their planet through intelligence and endurance. Doyen watched as delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some looked angry. Others looked thoughtful. A few looked genuinely frightened. Today I declare before all council species and all who monitor these transmissions, humanity is kin to the Vrakt, Taehyuk announced. They bear the mark of the apex. They carry the blood of survivors. Any species who threatens humanity threatens the Vrakt. Any species who dismisses them dismisses us. The transmission ended abruptly. The screen went dark. Silence filled the chamber like a physical weight. Luminarch's crystalline form pulsed rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. This is unprecedented. The Vrakt has never communicated beyond simple demands. How did it access our systems? It has had 47 years to learn, Doyun said quietly. You gave it access to databases for study. You underestimated its intelligence because you saw only a dangerous animal. But Taehyuk is as intelligent as any being in this chamber. More intelligent than most. Thexaval stood again, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. This changes nothing. The Terrans are still unworthy of expanded privileges. One Vrakt's delusions do not alter facts. Perhaps not, said a new delegate, a crystalline being from the Silicon Network. But they alter political reality. No species wants to be marked as an enemy of the Vrakt. We all know what happened to the Krell war fleet that imprisoned Taehyuk. 47,000 casualties from a single Vrakt. Other delegates began nodding. The calculation was simple and brutal. Whether humanity deserved respect was now irrelevant. They had gained the recognition of the galaxy's most feared species. That alone made them untouchable. The Council will take a recess, Luminarch declared. We must consult with security experts and legal advisors regarding this development. This session is suspended for 3 days. As delegates filed out of the chamber, Doyen remained at the podium. He felt both exhilarated and terrified. Taehyuk had just changed everything, but the full consequences were impossible to predict. Yunwoo appeared at his side. I do not know whether to congratulate you or prepare for war. Perhaps both, Doyen replied. They walked together through corridors filled with staring aliens. Some looks held anger. Others held fear. But none held mockery anymore. In a single morning, humanity had gone from laughingstock to unknown threat. Back in his quarters, Doyun found another encrypted message waiting. This one was actually from Minji. I saw the broadcast. I have no idea how you manage this, but well done. Earth's government has received diplomatic overtures from 6 species today. All of them want to discuss alliances. The Council has no choice but to grant our petition now. You have changed everything for humanity. Doyen stared out his window at the stars. Somewhere in Section 7, Taehyuk sat in its restored containment cell, having accomplished in 8 minutes of freedom what decades of human diplomacy could not achieve. Recognition, respect, and most importantly, fear. The prey species of the Council had finally realized that humanity was not like them, and they did not know whether that made humans allies or threats. The uncertainty would keep them cautious. 3 days passed in a blur of secret meetings and hushed conversations. Doyen spent most of his time locked in conference rooms with various delegations who suddenly wanted to discuss trade agreements, defense pacts, and cultural exchanges with Earth. The shift was dramatic and calculated. Species that had dismissed humanity days ago now competed for their attention. Hyunwoo coordinated with the Terran vessel Shadow of Soul, which orbited at the edge of the station's defensive perimeter. Its captain, Soman, kept the ship on high alert. Nobody knew if Taehyuk's declaration would bring allies or enemies, so Earth's military presence remained ready for either outcome. On the 4th morning, another emergency council session was called. This time the atmosphere was different. The chaos had been replaced by cold calculation. Delegates arrived in protective details, their security forces visible and armed. The laughter and casual mockery were gone completely. Doyen walked to the human section beside Hyunwoo and found 2 additional humans had joined them. One was Jiwoo, a xenobiologist from Earth's Academy of Sciences who had arrived on an emergency shuttle. The other was Captain Somin herself, wearing her military uniform and carrying herself with the confidence of someone who had commanded warships in actual combat. "Ambassador," Somin said, nodding respectfully, "I was ordered to attend as Earth's military representative. Whatever happens today, humanity will present a united position." Jiwoo clutched a datapad nervously. "I brought research. Comparative predator analysis across known species. If the Council demands scientific justification for the Vrath's claims, I have it ready." Doyen felt grateful for their presence. Whatever came next, he would not face it alone. Luminarch appeared above the podium, its crystalline form somehow looking tired despite being pure energy. "This Council session addresses the Vrath Declaration and its implications for humanity's status. Before we proceed with formal deliberations, Ambassador Thexval has requested to present evidence. Ambassador, you may begin." The massive Vraxian strode to the central podium with heavy steps. His forearms carried datapads and holographic projectors. When he spoke, his voice carried a forced calmness that barely concealed his anger. "Honorable delegates, I come before you with a scientific rebuttal to the Vrath's absurd claims. I have consulted with our best xenobiologists and psychologists. The evidence is clear. Humans are not predators in any meaningful sense. Holographic displays activated, showing comparative biological data. Humans have forward-facing eyes, yes, but so do many herbivores who need depth perception for climbing. They have no claws, no venom, no natural weapons whatsoever. Their physical strength is pathetic by galactic standards. They are smaller than most species and their bodies are fragile." Thexval's voice grew more confident. "Most importantly, they lack the psychological markers of true predator species. They form large cooperative societies, they avoid conflict when possible, and they display empathy even for other species. These are prey behaviors, not predator behaviors." Several delegates nodded in agreement. The argument was logical and well presented. Doyen felt his stomach tighten. "Therefore," Thexval concluded, "I move that the Council dismiss the Vrath's declaration as the delusion of an imprisoned creature suffering from isolation psychosis. Humanity should be evaluated based on objective criteria, not the ravings of a monster." Applause came from several delegations. Thexval returned to his seat looking satisfied. Luminarch pulsed. "Does the human delegation wish to respond?" Doyen stood, but before he could speak, Jiwoo touched his arm. "Let me," she whispered. "This is my specialty." Doyen nodded and sat back down. Jiwoo walked to the podium, her nervousness vanishing as she entered what was clearly her element. She activated her own holographic display and data streams filled the air. "Ambassador Thexval's analysis is correct but incomplete," Jiwoo began, her voice clear and professional. "He focuses on obvious physical traits while ignoring the subtle psychological markers that define true predator species. With the Council's permission, I would like to present a comprehensive comparison." Luminarch indicated approval. Jiwoo's display shifted to show a complex chart analyzing hundreds of species across multiple categories. "There are 2 types of predators in nature," Jiwoo explained. "Ambush predators who rely on strength and speed for quick kills, and persistence predators who rely on endurance and intelligence for long hunts. Most galactic species recognize only the first type because they are obvious and dramatic." The chart highlighted several species, including the Vrath, marked in red as ambush predators. Then it highlighted humanity and a handful of others in blue. Humans are persistence predators. On Earth before technology, humans would hunt prey by tracking them for days across vast distances. The prey would be faster and stronger, but humans would never stop following. Eventually, the prey would collapse from exhaustion. Humans would then approach and make the kill. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably, the image of small humans relentlessly pursuing larger animals for days until they died of exhaustion was somehow more disturbing than the image of quick, violent kills. "The strategy requires specific psychological traits," Jiwoo continued. "Extreme endurance, ability to delay gratification, capacity for long-term planning, and most importantly, pack coordination. Humans excel at all of these. They also display another critical predator marker. They can eat almost anything. True prey species are specialized eaters. Predators are opportunistic. The display shifted again, showing human history. Ambassador Thexval mentioned that humans avoid conflict when possible. This is true but misleading. Humans avoid unnecessary conflict because they calculate cost versus benefit. When conflict is necessary, they engage in coordinated pack violence that is devastating. Images of human warfare filled the display. Not glorified or dramatized, just cold historical facts. The scope and efficiency of human organized violence was undeniable. In Earth's history, humans fought wars that lasted generations. They developed weapons of such power that they could destroy their entire planet. They engaged in conflicts where millions died, and yet they continued fighting. This is not prey behavior. Prey animals flee or submit. Predators evaluate, calculate, and strike when conditions favor success. Jiwoo looked directly at Thexval. You said humans display empathy for other species. Yes, they do. But do you know what else displays empathy? Pack predators. Wolves, earth dolphins, and humans all show empathy for their pack members, and sometimes for other species they consider part of their extended pack. This empathy exists to strengthen pack bonds, which makes coordinated hunting more effective. The chamber had gone completely silent. Delegates who had been nodding along with Thexval's presentation now looked uncertain. The Vrakth recognized humanity as kin, because we share the fundamental psychological profile of successful predator species, Jiwoo concluded. Not in physical form, but in cognitive patterns. Both humans and Vrakth are intelligent pack hunters who succeeded through persistence, coordination, and the ability to turn their predatory instincts into tools rather than liabilities. The recognition is scientifically valid. She returned to her seat. Doyen wanted to applaud but restrained himself. Jiwoo had just dismantled Thexval's argument using nothing but facts and logic. Luminarch pulsed thoughtfully. The Council acknowledges both presentations. However, this debate may be rendered moot by recent developments. Security Chief, please present your report. A heavily armored being approached the podium. Its species was unknown to Doyen, something rare and clearly powerful. In the past 4 days, we have analyzed the security breach in Section 7. Our findings are disturbing. The Vrakth prisoner Taehyuk has been systematically compromising station systems for the past 16 years. Shocked gasps filled the chamber. 16 years? It began with simple queries to educational databases, the security chief continued. Over time, it gained deeper access by exploiting poorly secured maintenance protocols. By the time we detected the breach, Taehyuk had access to virtually all station systems except weapons and life support. It could have escaped at any time during the past 5 years. It chose not to. Why would it remain imprisoned if it could escape? A delegate asked. Because it was waiting, the security chief replied. According to our analysis of its system queries, Taehyuk spent years studying humanity. It monitored their communications, read their literature, analyzed their history. It was searching for something specific, a species that matched certain psychological criteria. When humans applied for expanded council privileges, Taehyuk recognized an opportunity. The security chief's display showed a timeline of Taehyuk's activities. It arranged the entire encounter with Ambassador Doyen. It forged communications, manipulated security barriers, and timed the meeting precisely. The 8 minutes of freedom were not an escape attempt. They were a demonstration. Doyen felt a chill. He had thought himself clever for facing Taehyuk calmly. But the entire encounter had been orchestrated by the Vrakth from beginning to end. Taehyuk had been testing him, evaluating humanity through their representative. What does the Vrakth want? Luminarch asked. It has submitted a formal petition, the security chief said. 3 weeks later, Doyen stood in a very different place than the council chamber. He was on a shuttle descending through the atmosphere of a planet that had no official name yet. It was a world at the edge of known space, with vast forests and deep oceans unclaimed by any council species because it was considered too remote and too dangerous. Gravity was higher than Earth standard. The atmosphere was thick with oxygen. Predators ruled the food chain. It was perfect for the Vrakth. Beside Doyen sat Taehyuk, no longer behind energy barriers but free and alert. The creature wore no restraints, carried no monitoring devices. The council had agreed to its release, though the decision had been far from unanimous. Many species had threatened to withdraw from the council entirely. Others had demanded military guarantees. In the end, pragmatism had won over fear. "You are nervous," Taehyuk observed, speaking in Korean as it preferred. "Your heart rate has increased and I can smell the chemical changes in your sweat." "I am nervous," Doyen admitted. "We are about to establish first contact protocols between your species and galactic civilization. If this fails, it could mean war across half the known galaxy." "It will not fail," Taehyuk said with absolute confidence. "My people have been waiting for this opportunity for generations. We have watched the Council from the shadows, studied their weaknesses, planned our approach. We would have acted eventually regardless. Your species simply accelerated the timeline." The shuttle touched down in a clearing surrounded by massive trees. The rear door opened and Doyen got his first look at free Vract in their natural habitat. There were dozens of them, emerging from the forest with movements that were somehow both graceful and threatening. They were all massive, all powerful, all radiating the same dangerous intelligence he had seen in Taehyuk, but they showed no aggression. Instead, they approached the shuttle with what looked like curiosity. A particularly large Vract stepped forward. Its scales were darker than Taehyuk's, almost black-purple, and old scars crossed its chest and arms. When it spoke, its voice was even deeper than Taehyuk's. "I am Kangmin, leader of the first landing. We welcome you, Ambassador Doyen of Humanity. We welcome you, Brother Taehyuk. Return to us at last." Taehyuk stepped off the shuttle and the two Vract embraced in a complex gesture that involved careful positioning of claws and heads. It was clearly a greeting between warriors who respected each other's ability to cause harm. 47 years, Kangmin said. "We thought you lost. We mourned. But you endured." "I learned," Taehyuk replied. "And I found kin among the stars. Kangmin, this is Ambassador Doyen. He represents Earth, the species I spoke of in my transmissions." Kangmin studied Doyen with the same intense gaze Taehyuk had used during their first meeting. Doyen forced himself to stand still and meet those eyes. He had learned that showing fear to Vract was not dangerous in itself. They could smell fear regardless. What mattered was how you behaved despite the fear. "Small," Kangmin observed. "Soft, weak by our standards." Then the massive creature did something unexpected. It lowered its head in a respectful bow. "Yet you faced Taehyuk in imprisonment and sat calmly while barriers fell. You carry the Predator's heart even if you lack the Predator's form. We acknowledge you, Ambassador Doyen. We acknowledge your species." Over the next several hours, Doyen met with Vract leaders and learned things about their species that the Council had never known. The Vract were not mindless killers. They were a complex society with strict honor codes and deep philosophical traditions. They valued strength but also cunning. They respected courage but also wisdom. They had been avoiding galactic civilization deliberately, watching and waiting until they found a species they could work with. The Council's prey species majority made them unsuitable allies. They would always fear the Vract too much to negotiate honestly. But humans? Humans understood what it meant to be dangerous while choosing to be civilized. "We make you an offer," Kangmin said as the sun set over the unnamed planet. "An alliance between Vract and humanity. We share military technology and tactical knowledge. You share diplomatic access and cultural understanding. Together we present a united front to the Council. The apex predators and the persistence hunters. The ambush killers and the pack coordinators." Doyen had anticipated this moment. He had prepared for it with Minji and Earth's government over encrypted channels for the past 3 weeks. The answer had been debated intensely. Some officials feared becoming too associated with the Vract's violent reputation. Others saw the strategic advantage. In the end, Earth had decided to take the risk. "Humanity accepts your offer," Doyen said formally. "We propose the creation of the Predator's Compact, a mutual defense and cooperation agreement between our species. We will establish cultural exchange programs, joint research initiatives, and coordinated diplomatic strategies." "The Predator's Compact," Kangmin repeated, testing the words. "Yes, that is appropriate. But we must be clear about terms. This is not an alliance where one species dominates the other. We are partners, equals. You have strengths we lack. We have strengths you lack. Together we are more than either species alone." "Agreed," Doyen said. "The compact will be based on mutual respect and shared interest. No species is subordinate." They worked through the night hammering out details with Hyunwoo and Jiwoo providing input on technical aspects. Captain Soman participated via secure communication from the Shadow of Seoul, ensuring military protocols were properly addressed. By dawn, They had a framework. It would take months to finalize all the details, but the core was solid. The Predators' compact would be a new power block in galactic politics. Not as large as the Council's prey species majority, but significant enough to shift the balance. As Doyen prepared to return to his shuttle for the journey back to Council Station, Taehyuk approached him one final time. "You asked me once why I call you brother," the Vract said. "I told you it was because we are kin in nature, but there is more to it than that." "What do you mean?" Doyen asked. "In Vract culture, siblings are not just those who share blood. Siblings are those who would stand with you in the hunt, who would watch your back in battle, who would honor your memory if you fell. You have proven yourself such a sibling." Taehyuk placed one massive clawed hand on Doyen's shoulder with surprising gentleness. "When I was imprisoned, I was alone. Now because of you, I am part of a pack again. Not just my own species, but an extended pack that includes yours. This is a gift beyond price." Doyen felt emotion tighten his throat. "You gave humanity a gift as well. Recognition, respect, a place in the galaxy that we could never have achieved through diplomacy alone." "Perhaps we gave each other what we both needed," Taehyuk suggested. The Vract needed allies who understood what it means to be predators choosing civilization. Humanity needed recognition as something more than prey. "We found each other at the right moment." The shuttle lifted off shortly after, carrying Doyen back to orbit. As he looked down at the planet that would become the Vract's new home and the foundation of the Predators' compact, he reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. 4 weeks ago, he had been a laughingstock standing at a podium, while Council species mocked his size and his species. Today, he was the architect of an alliance that was already reshaping galactic politics. Messages had been flooding in from across Council space. Some species were terrified of the Vract-human partnership. Others were intrigued. A few had even requested information about joining the compact themselves. Apparently, there were more predator species in the galaxy than the Council had acknowledged. They had been hiding their nature to fit into a society that valued prey species psychology. Now they were emerging, drawn to the idea of an alliance where being a predator was not something to hide but something to acknowledge and direct constructively. Back at Council Station, Doyen found his quarters filled with diplomatic proposals. Earth's original petition for mining rights had been approved unanimously within hours of the compact's announcement. More importantly, humanity had been granted full council membership, not provisional status. Several species wanted trade agreements. Others wanted defense pacts. A few wanted cultural exchanges. Hyunwoo came to his quarters that evening, looking exhausted but satisfied. "The Shadow of Seoul has been joined by 3 more Earth vessels. We are establishing a permanent diplomatic presence in this sector. Captain Soman has been promoted to Admiral and will command the fleet. Earth wants you to remain as primary ambassador to both the Council and the Vract." "I expected as much," Doyen said. "This is only the beginning. There will be complications, conflicts, misunderstandings. Building a lasting alliance will take years. But we have time now," Hyunwoo pointed out. "We have resources. We have allies. We have respect. That is more than we had a month ago." Doyen smiled and looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Taehyuk was settling into a new life of freedom. Other Vract were beginning to interact with galactic civilization for the first time in their history. And humanity was stepping into a larger role on the galactic stage. A message notification appeared on his screen. It was from Minji back on Earth. He opened it and read, "Ambassador Doyen, you have exceeded every expectation. When I sent you to the Council, I hoped you would secure mining rights.